On Facebook. All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Ask the Expert with the Martin Eiden team. And I'm very excited today. I have a good friend of mine, Beth Jacobs, on. And Beth is a farmer, which is amazing. That's something that I was thinking of those bumper stickers, Beth, no farms, no food.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
So first of all, tell us a little bit about like your tell us a little bit about what you're farming now and what's going on. And you, on our pre-call yesterday, you said you were basically a farm manager. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. So, hey everyone, my name's Beth. My pronouns are Beth or they, them, theirs. I'm here in Brooklyn right now, which is on the occupied land of the Canarsie tribe of Lenape, which, you know, we're talking about land, we're talking about like food and what it means to be a farmer and farm manager.
Right. Hold on one second. Can you put Sean on mute, Jared? Thank you.
Cool. There we go. Awesome.
All right. So let's start. You're here in Brooklyn. Yeah, we talked a little bit about history on our thing with Indigenous Peoples Day on Monday. You wanted to talk a little bit about the land. So you're in Brooklyn and start with that.
Yeah. So I'm here in Brooklyn. Brooklyn is also occupied Canarsie tribe of Lenape land. Those are the Indigenous peoples of this island, a little bit beyond Brooklyn and Manhattan as well.
Oh, wow.
Because
I've heard of Canarsie. That's a neighborhood in Brooklyn.
Totally. Yeah, so I'm just going to also drop a little link in this chat to a page that has a little more information there. I don't want to use too much of our time, but it does feel really important to just say, like, it was Indigenous Peoples Day on Monday. We're talking about land. Food grows from land. We live on land. So it feels really important to just bring that in and honor that.
I think that's great.
So
go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm a farm manager of a half-acre farm right now. It's sort of a glorified garden, but it's a really beautiful piece of land up in Bedford, New York, which for those of you who are not New Yorkers, that's basically a really close suburb. There's a lot of like big spacious properties. So right now I grow food for a family that runs their private practice out of their home, and they want food coming from the land that they live on. So they hire a farmer. And my background is, So, you know, I'm growing things that they like. I'm also growing things that I like. They really love those. I made the seed plan and the crop plan. So it's kind of fun like that, getting to know, you know, I know what me and my partner eat. I know our favorite varieties of things, so I get to grow that. And I also am growing some sort of like gourmet lettuce mixes that the people who I grow for are really into, and all sorts of other goodies. And wow. I also think it would be really fun for those of you who are here on Facebook and on Zoom, like to chat what your favorite vegetable is, or if you have a story of like gardening or farming, like what that's like for you. And Martin, I would love to hear your answer as well.
Oh, sure. So I will give you my answer after I ask one question. How about that?
Oh, okay.
A trade, if you will. Now, how did you get interested in farming? Is your degree farming, or how did your journey take you there?
Totally. Yeah, well, I do not come from an agricultural family. I think, you know, some folks can trace, even if maybe in the most recent generations of their family are not agricultural, there's some history there. I think I'm several generations away from an agricultural lifestyle. But my mom always had a prolific garden. And so I always loved helping her with that. And I also spent a lot of time, there was a canyon near where I grew up in San Diego, California, which is Kumeyaay land. That I spent a lot of time in as a kid. So I really just loved growing food, being in nature. It's very much like what has sort of built me as a person as well. And then I actually studied wildlife biology Garlic
Wow.
totally counts as a vegetable, by the way, whoever just chatted that.
Oh yeah, that was
I love
Jerry.
garlic. I have garlic everywhere. um, and so I studied wildlife biology. So that
Okay.
gave me some more information around and understanding around ecosystems, ecosystem functions, sort of like a broader picture, while also being able to study some more like hard science and really like specific things. And there's a lot of crossover with plant science, with agricultural science at my university. And I just ended up like loving plants, which you can kind of see
Wow.
behind me.
Yeah, all the
Just
plants you have behind
a
there.
small a small window into all my babies here.
Oh.
And I kind of felt like as I was having a broader understanding of the world, I was starting to pinpoint like agriculture is actually like quite the intersection of so many different things that were happening. Like if I
Mm-hmm.
believed in having access to food, whether that
Right.
be fresh food or not, if I believe in like indigenous sovereignty, if I believe in reparations, if I believe in like diaspora, which I do, I'm Jewish, and having a connection to land, like my
Uh-huh.
people have been diasporic for so long, and making home wherever we are is really like a part of our cultural heritage and our history. Like that is also in agriculture and farming. And learning about, farm worker rights are so also related to domestic workers' rights, because they're both not classified in protections for workers in like as laborers. They're
Interesting.
excluded
I
from
didn't
that.
know that. Okay. Wow.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
hopefully
So
that will
it's
change.
just like hope. Yes, exactly. And everything that affects like farmers and also food stamps and
Mm-hmm.
those types of social supports are all part of the Farm Bill. So, which,
Wow. Right.
yeah.
And
So it's just everything is connected.
it's very interesting, right? And and big pharma, we talked about that, or big farm, is it big food, big pharma, whatever. What's the right term?
Hmm.
But we won't get into that
There's
too
like,
much
yeah.
today. Oh, go ahead.
No,
But
you keep going.
but what I liked was, and I do owe you vegetables, so I promise you that. Just I wanted to continue this trend of thought. Was that I like your idea of the context of food and farming and all those interconnections, right? So my family came over here from Germany, in the mid 1800s, and yeah, the first thing that they were farmers. So it's interesting on that. And I think with COVID and the universe all saying that we needed to take a 3-month sabbatical earlier this year, and so everybody had an opportunity to rediscover the land, if you will. And what I liked in our pre-call yesterday a lot was, so this is a half an acre that you have for food, which if you live here in New York, a half an acre is basically half a square block. But with tens to hundreds of people living in the country, it's not that
Hmm.
much land. And I was just blown away that you're basically monitoring this small farm slash grand garden once a week with a helper, and you have enough food to feed 10 people at any given time, more or less. Is that right?
Hmm. Yeah.
that
Yeah,
that
definitely.
that's insane. I mean, that's an incredible um way of in some ways I call it eating off the grid. Now, you use power and stuff to for the farm, but you're not going to the store. And what was the dollar cost of getting the land ready and seed and everything, would you say? Or was there like an initial cost with it, or?
Mm. It's a little hard to say, um, because this garden's been being run for over 10 years, I believe.
Okay.
Um, so I don't know what all the sort of like initial costs were for, obviously these people own this property. I don't know that
Right.
cost. Um, But some other kind of, I can just like throw out some
let's
things
just
that
say,
are helpful, things that I rely on. I don't know what they
fair
cost,
enough.
but
Let's say
you
with the
could do them.
plantings. Go ahead.
Yeah. So there's a deer fence,
Okay.
which is very helpful because even with the deer fence this year, one week I was like, okay, my romaine lettuce looks beautiful. I'm going to harvest it next week because it's like almost there. It's like just
Right.
about to be perfect. Give it a couple more days. I come back. I actually think I was there twice that week. So there was only a day in between. I was there Tuesday and Thursday. I get there Thursday morning and I'm doing, drinking my coffee, saying hello to all the plants. Like the sun is rising. It's
Of course.
midsummer. I'm just giving you some story. And I get to my lettuce beds and they are just clear cut, definitely deer. And I was like, I should have harvested them last week. But that's also just like, there's so many lessons in farming too, of like, you can plan 100%, but you really have to expect maybe 50%. And it's all about like having plans, having precision, and being really flexible and letting go of perfection. And just, it's really like a give and take with nature as well. I was actually just harvesting potatoes earlier this week. And as I like moved my straw mulch away, I saw these cute voles run away. They're like really soft, little fluffy. You probably know what a mouse looks like. A vole is like a little more sausagey than like in shape, and a little bit more fluffy. And I was like, oh, cute voles. And then I'm digging for my potatoes and I'm like, oh my gosh, they ate half my potatoes, but I hope they're all plump for winter.
That's really funny. So what was like the
fence.
seed? Deer fence. And like, I guess what was like the seed and plantings cost? Do you have a rough idea at all?
Totally. Let me pull that up really quick. I think my total, excluding labor, so including seeds, a couple new tools, some like mulch. I use salt hay, which covers the surface, which means I have to do less weeding. And then some other kind of harvest materials. I use compostable bags most of the time. I also use containers. So a couple of those things, my total spending has been like $2,500.
Wow.
Not including labor. So you can probably eat, like, imagine that as a bunch of vegetables for at least 10 veggie loving adult humans.
Wow. That's incredible. And that's for...
Yeah. And that's, me starting in like late February, early March. That's what I've spent.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah. Not including labor.
Right. And not including labor, but, and then just kind of talking a little bit about maintenance. It's basically, you're there one day a week and you have a helper with you one day a week. So it's 2 work days a week, so to speak.
Yeah, essentially. And in the summer, me and my assistant were going twice a week, and I had 2 like semi-regular volunteers.
Okay. So if it's if you have a family, and again, this is a half an acre, which is ginormous. And you also told me that this is not jam-packed with plants per se, right?
Yeah.
Like you could...
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, and this is the thing about like a small, diverse operation, is that I'm growing everything from tomatoes, cabbage, so much lettuce, garlic, onions, potatoes, squash. I did peas in the beginning of the season. I've done a couple different like salad greens mixes and braising mixes, bok choy, jo choy, radishes. Right now I've got daikon radishes and watermelon radishes and Hakurei turnips. So all of this is happening. And also like my broccoli and my cauliflower didn't really get very far this year because we had such a wacky spring. And also with coronavirus uprising, that sort of threw off my schedule and my ability to get certain things that I needed. So, you know, I'm saying this as compared to what I think the perception of like, what is like farming? Farmers are like soy, wheat, corn, maybe
Mm-hmm.
potatoes, right? Those are the sort of like big ag industries, and that's all monocropping. So that means
Right.
one species all year long, which depletes the soil. I mean, we have a history of, in the US, we had the Dust Bowl, which had a lot to do with, how we treated topsoil and how we
Right.
related to land and water. And so this, I have a really high quality soil that's been being cared for by all the farmers and all the people that tended this land before me, and all these different vegetables. They're rotated. I generally work on like a 3 to 4 year plan.
Okay.
So planning out where different crops go. So certain things that need a lot of nutrients are not going to go in the same bed 2 years in a row, because that doesn't really support the soil.
Interesting. And is it because
You
like
know,
some plants give back nutrients and other plants absorb nutrients? Is that kind of how
yeah.
it is a little
So
bit, or?
yeah, there's some kind of specific science around it, which we won't go into too much.
But
But
it's
for
crop
instance,
rotation,
like
basically. Yeah.
crop rotation is really important, and then also managing, like, that includes cover cropping. So this is kind of the time of year where, as certain things are ready and I'm clearing the beds, I'm cover cropping them. So they'll be cared for in the soil. That means at least one of the species that I use to plant is a nitrogen fixer. So right now
Okay.
I'm using hairy vetch as my nitrogen fixer. There's a lot of nitrogen in the atmosphere.
Uh-huh.
And we need nitrogen for everything, and plants need nitrogen, but they can't get it from the air. So certain plants have a symbiotic relationship with fungi,
Wow.
that they are able to bring nitrogen from the atmosphere, fix it into the soil, and then those will get churned in next year, and the plants that are planted in there will have the nitrogen that they need.
Wow. That's fascinating.
So it's quick science.
Wow. That's just like, yeah, it's all and before it was the technical people knew to do crop rotation and give the year, a season or a field a rest a
Mm-hmm.
season, right? So this is all
Mm-hmm.
kind of putting the science together. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
favorite vegetables for me are broccoli, broccolini. I
Mm.
also like bok choy. That was funny that you mentioned it. And I like I'm kind of on a big spinach thing right now, actually. Um, so
Cool.
those are my favorite vegetables. And I think what's kind of and I was just thinking about this, right? So I'm on a cycle right now. Oh, Jared is bok choy. That's awesome. uh,
Yeah, me too.
I'm on and just with talking with you, so I'm changing my food diet for a while, and it's a lot of intense vegetable eating, and so I'm kind of like a little stuck in like, okay, lettuce, spinach, celery, Brussels sprouts, asparagus, and like that's it, right? And you just rattled
Mm-hmm.
off a whole bunch of things, and I think you know. So tell me a little bit. I think if you have a land that you grow your own food, um, you're kind of forced to discover new types of plants to eat, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many varieties of so many vegetables, which you wouldn't know if you were only able to shop at the grocery store, which is how I was raised. Like,
Right.
I only knew there was white corn and yellow corn, and that there was
Mm-hmm.
watermelon and cantaloupe and honeydew. There's such diversity in all of these things, even just those like like kinds of crops. Like, I
Okay.
grew 3 different types of watermelon before. There's so
Wow.
many kinds. Um, and there's so many different varieties that have been like propagated and domesticated all over the world. one thing that I think is really interesting, because you named off actually a lot of brassicas. So brassicas are kale, collards, cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, those kind of like mustardy greens.
Right.
Bok choy. They also have the same pests, so you have to rotate them. But so brassicas actually, cabbage is a really interesting thing. Cabbage was refined in two regions distinctly. So you have the European kind of smooth skin cabbage. That's sort of the round green and red cabbages that we think of.
Right.
And then you also have cabbage simultaneously being cultivated in Asia. That's how you have this sort of like textured, you've got a lot of different kind of those elongated cabbages you think that are in like kimchi and other sort of like fries. Right. Those were happening at the same time separately, but they are both cabbage. So it is sort of this global phenomenon on like what people eat and what gives our bodies nutrients. And there is so much out there, which kind of leaves me like in our last couple minutes, I wanted to talk about like okay, so here's some fun things that Beth says about farming, but like, what does that mean to you? Why? What can you do? How can you relate to like food and farming in your life? So there's kind of immediately two things that have become more popularized in the last 10 years. Farmers markets.
Absolutely. Tell me about
markets are great if your budget can allow for that. A lot of farmers markets now are also accepting EBT. So that's a really great way for folks to get really fresh, organic, or even just local produce that isn't necessarily found everywhere. So you can get a lot of specialty things. You oftentimes get to meet the farmers, or, you know, people who know the farmers, and the money that you spend there goes directly to the farm. Whereas when you get from a grocery store, you're paying the grocery store has a distributor, the distributor has a resourcer, the resourcer has the farm. That's probably not even all the steps. There's so much transportation in between. So when we think about like supporting farming is not lucrative. So most farmers lease their land. A majority of farmers in the US right now don't own their own land, which is kind of, I didn't know that until I started farming.
Interesting.
So you can support farmers directly, right? So you can shop at the farmers market. You can subscribe to a CSA box, that stands for Community Supported Agriculture, which essentially you can do a payment plan or you pay all up front at the beginning of the season, which gives the farmers all the resources they need to actually grow the food. And then you get the food once a week or every other week. And it's a really fun way. You don't have necessarily say in what vegetables you get, but it kind of is like, oh, I've got like fennel and okra this week. These are things that I'm not used to cooking or eating. Let me experiment. Let me have some fun. Or let me like give it to my neighbor or, you know, trade with somebody else, right? So there's some community on multiple levels there. That's sort of the like pay with your wallet method. That's one way that you can interact and support farmers. Another way is you can support, and I pulled up a link here since we are in New York. There's the Northeast Farmers of Color Land Trust, which is fiscally hosted at Soulfire Farm, which is an incredible farm that's located near Troy, New York. And they are a really incredible hub supporting Black farmers, training Black and brown farmers, because there has been such a disparity between who actually has access to land in this country is so racialized. So racialized. I can
believe it. Yeah.
Which we know, you know, we're in the midst of another really huge uprising. And while we're seeing it out loud right now, it's actually just been happening for a long time, since the founding of this country. And you know, there's origins of how the food system is racialized and built on stolen land, stolen labor, and that we get to benefit. You know, I'm here in Brooklyn and I'm growing my food, but last year I wasn't, and I was just shopping at the grocery. You know, there's just like so much that we benefit from.
Absolutely.
So you can support the Northeast Farmers of Color Land Trust. You can donate to them. You can look at the work that they're doing. They have an incredible reparations map. So they've actually, and it's not exhaustive, but they've created an interactive map that you can look up different Black-led farm projects or land projects.
Oh, wow.
All across the US. And you can decide, like, you know, I've been living here for a long time. I've really benefited from this. You know, personally, I'm white. So I do a lot of reparations because I can, and it's really values aligned for me. And I've found a lot of places to kind of do that repair work through their interactive map.
Wow, that's great.
So here's this link. And there is, like, racism in the food system is not a thing of the past. It's really a thing of the present. If any of you listened or have heard of, the New York Times last year did a podcast series called 1619. They have an entire episode on land. And I really would recommend that. Let's see, I think I pulled it up.
I had to say, you're one of our most prepared guests, Beth. You have all these great links for us, which is awesome. We'll reference all these.
Totally. Yeah. I don't have the link ready for that one, but
you can always post it in
I certainly learned a lot. Yeah. Yeah. And I recommend that whole series, but certainly the second to last episode, if you are interested in food and farming and how it relates to what we're experiencing right now with uprisings around the systemic racism and white supremacy in the US. Wow. Highly recommend that.
That's awesome. So shifting gears a bit, we only have a couple minutes, is if somebody wants to start growing food in their backyard, what do you suggest starting? Like take a 10 by 10 plot and get a rototiller and add fertilizer, and what plants do you recommend going with first, or what advice do you have?
Yeah, well, I would definitely recommend, to look up your zone. So there's different classified zones that'll help you narrow down what you can grow and then help you kind of figure out your timing. Because farming is all about, we're predicting the weather, we're trying to create the right environments for our crops to grow so we can eat them at a certain time and have a sort of continuation of food. Start with kitchen herbs. Honestly,
wow. That's a great idea.
They're really fun. They smell amazing. They taste amazing. Some things you can start and have them going for a long time. Those are sort of classified as perennials. So you plant them once and they come back. Mint will take over. So if you plant mint, be prepared. It will take over. Oregano, thyme. I have actually like 2 different kinds of mint going. I also am growing this year in my kitchen shiso, which is like a Japanese mint. I've been making delicious cocktails with that. And then for some annuals, which are fun, you get to kind of like watch them grow their whole life cycle. You can do basil, is really good. Amazing. Midsummer basil, everything.
Wow.
That would be my start. And then from there, explore, you have to be loving and also unattached. So plants die. It happens. Right. Don't beat yourself up. Get a new plant. Try it again. Get to know the plant. Ask them who they are.
Right. Wow. That's great, Beth. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything departing that you want to say? You
this
said
has
a
been
lot
really
in
fun.
a great way. Yeah. It's been really great. And I just like your perspective on food and farming and what it means and how you can, not only benefit yourself, but others, and just how it's all interconnected. So thank you so much for sharing your insight with us today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I hope you all have an enjoyable rest of your week.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you everybody for joining us on Ask the Expert with the Martin Eiden team. Beth Jacobs, a farmer. Next week, Whit, I think it's you next week, I believe. I believe so. Anyhow, so thanks everybody, and then hang on, Beth, after we get off Facebook.
Thanks, Beth.